Good day, everybody. My name is Paul Badame, and I am a Social Security disability attorney with the law firm of Rubin and Badame in Norristown, PA. So today we're going to talk about the two types of programs that the federal government offers when it comes to disability. The first program is called SSDI, and the second program is called SSI. Now, let's talk about the first program, SSDI. SSDI stands for Social Security Disability Insurance. SSI stands for Supplemental Security Income. So, for SSDI, a person is eligible to apply for that if they have enough work credits throughout their lifetime and within the past 10 years. So, you need 40 work credits throughout your lifetime, and 20 of those 40 credits must have been within the past 10 years. So how does an individual obtain work credits? And how many work credits can you earn in a year? Well, the maximum amount of work credits that a person can earn in a year is 4. And how do you earn work credits? Well, in 2020, for every $1,410 that a person earns, they get 1 credit. So if you multiply that by 4, you get approximately $5,640. So, to get 4 credits in this particular year, you only have to earn a little over $5,600. So, going back, each year goes up a little bit more, but as long as you earned that amount, 5 of the last 10 years, you are eligible to apply for SSDI. Now, that's, in reality, that's not a lot of money that we're talking about. So if that's all that you earned, then your monthly benefit, which is called your PIA, your primary insured amount, is going to be very low, probably $300 or $400 or $500 a month. Now, one of the first things people ask me is, well, what's the maximum I can earn with SSD? 2020, the maximum amount that a person can earn is a little over $3,000 a month. Now, in order to be eligible to receive that amount of money, you basically would have had to have maxed out your Social Security payments for the past 15, 20 years. By maxing out, when you earn $137,000 during the year, at that point in time, at least for 2020, boom, you stop paying FICA taxes and you're maxed out in your earnings for that year. So going back in time and, going forward, to get that maximum amount of over $3,000, you really have had to earn a lot of money over a long period of time. So the other way a person can accumulate these work credits is through self-employment. Now, if you own your own business or you're an independent contractor, make sure that you pay your taxes and hopefully you earn some kind of profit. If you break even and don't show any kind of profit, then your earnings for that year are going to be 0 and you get no work credits. So if you do earn a profit for that year and it's over, like we talked about earlier, $5,640, once you pay whatever taxes you would owe, and when you're you're self-employed or when you're an independent contractor, it's called self-employment taxes. Once you pay those taxes, you get your credits for that year. So that's how you obtain SSDI. And SSI, what's that? Again, that's Supplemental Security Income. So SSI is for individuals that either never worked or never worked on the books, i.e. worked under the table and didn't pay taxes, or stopped working a long time ago and their credits expired, or they have a spotty work record where they earn some amount in this year, none for 2 years, so on and so forth. So, which is better? Obviously, SSDI is better. The average person that's on SSDI receives approximately about $1,300 or $1,400 a month. Again, that's based upon the earnings that you made. The maximum amount, and this is if everything goes right, that a person can get in 2020 for SSI is $750. So, obviously, that first benefit with SSDI is that you almost all the time would earn more money, would receive more money per month. So, another big difference with SSI and SSD is SSI is needs based. They count your resources. So, for SSI, your countable resources cannot exceed $2,000. If you own a house and if you own one car, no matter how much they're worth, they don't count as the countable resources. All of your other assets, even if it's an old bank account somewhere, if it's an old U.S. bond you have, the total amount of those other assets cannot exceed $2,000. If they exceed $2,000, you are ineligible for SSI, and your case would stop right there. Or if you're already on SSI, your benefits would stop until you're under that limit. With SSDI, there is no limit on your assets. So you could have $1 million in the bank. You could win the lottery for $100 million. Does not affect your SSD benefits. You earn them, you paid into the system, they are your credits. So also with SSI, if you have earned income, or if your spouse, you're legally married, if they are working and earning money, it could make you ineligible. So, for example, if you get a part-time job and you're earning, let's say, $600 a month, the first 100 hours doesn't count, and this is for SSI, so that 600 goes down to 500. They take 50% of that 500, which is 250, and subtract it off of your SSI benefits. So if you're earning the max, 783 minus 250, that would be your new benefit. So basically you get penalized for working, which really stinks. With SSD, whatever you're earning, and again, this is another story for another day, you can earn whatever you're earning, you don't get penalized. So if you're earning $600, $700, $800 a month and you're on SSD, and let's say your SSD benefit is, $1,900 a month, it does not affect your SSD benefits, whether it's your income or your spouse's income. So if you're married and your spouse is working, it works the same way. SSI, your same formula. SSD, your spouse can make $1 million a year. It does not affect your benefits at all. They are your benefits. You paid into the system. They're yours, and that doesn't affect it. So another big benefit for, another detriment, we should say, for SSI is your value of food and shelter. So for SSI, if you're living with your parents or living somewhere for free, you get penalized for that. In 2020, typically if you're living, let's say, even on your friend's couch for free, or if you're living in your parents' basement, you get penalized about $246 a month for what's called their free value of food and shelter. And because of that, your money will be deducted from your SSI for the value of food and shelter. At SSD, you don't get penalized. So if you are living with your parents, if you are living on somebody's couch, if you're living somewhere for free, they don't take any money off of that. And there are a number of other benefits for SSD over SSI, but we'll talk about one more, and that is what is called the derivative benefit. So, with SSI, if you have children, let's say you have 2 or 3 minor children, whatever your SSI benefit is, if it's 783, that's it. For SSD, you can get extra money for your children. For example, let's say your benefit for SSD is, and I'll use an easy number, $1,600 per month. If you have a minor child, and a minor child is either 18, or if they haven't graduated high school, they could be 19 and not have graduated high school. But usually it's about 18 is where it cuts off at. You would get an additional 50% for your child. So, and it from you would get your $1,600 plus another $800 for your child. Now, whether you have one minor child or 10, it's still the same. It's just 50%. But that 50% is divided up between the kids. So you would get your $1,600 plus another $800. So that would be $2,400 a month until your youngest child turns 18 or graduates high school, whichever happens last. And one more thing I wanted to add for SSD versus SSI is retroactivity. So with SSDI, if you stop working, let's say a year and a half before you apply, with SSDI, you can get paid a year retroactive. That's 12 months retroactive from when you filed. So, for example, let's say you're entitled to that year retroactivity. Your monthly benefit is $1,000 a month. You would get a $12,000 retroactive lump sum payment. That's for SSD, and also that applies with the derivative benefits. So, let's say you're getting half of that, $500 for the kids. That also would go retroactive for 1 year if you're eligible for that 1 year of retroactivity. For SSI, there is no retroactivity. The date that you file, actually the month after the date that you file. So, for example, if you filed on September 25th of 2020, your protective filing date is that date. If you're approved for SSI 6-7 months later, it would only go retroactive to that following month from when you applied. So it'll be October 1st of 2020. So even if you were disabled 2-3 years prior to that, for SSI, there was no retroactivity. So with those two programs, SSD versus SSI, as we talked about it, the SSDI is much better than SSI, and that's it for today.